joined today by our Police Commissioner Michael Harrison, Deputy Commissioner Sullivan, Colonel Worley, Lieutenant Colonel Jones, Lieutenant Colonel Brown, our Health Commissioner, Dr. Terraza, our Fire Chief, Niles Ford. Let's see, who else am I missing? Oh, there he is, Steve Strickland, the Director of the Mayor's Office of Project Management, and Shantae Jackson. Shantae's here? No. Our Deputy Mayor for Public Safety, Sonny Schnitzer. Thank you all for being here today. We are here today to provide a public safety update. I will be holding these updates regularly in the spirit of transparency, accountability, and making Baltimore a safer city. I will also want to thank all the members joining me here today and all you joining us here today at the new Baltimore Police Department Central District. Before we get into the substance of today's announcement, I want to acknowledge the hard work that went into making this district happen. After several years of waiting for a new district, Central District officers had their first roll call in the former Baltimore Sun building on Monday. Over the past year, project manager Steve Strickland and members of his team have worked tirelessly with Aptico and other partners to make this a reality. I want to thank the members of the police department, including the BPD IT team, members of the Central District Command for their input, and in particular, our officers for their patience. The move to this building, one that housed the Baltimore Sun, is emblematic of the changing nature of this department. It recognizes a shift to 21st century practices, a commitment to providing our officers with the tools and resources that they need to do their jobs, and a complete dedication to transparency and a continuous improvement. Thank you again to everyone who made this move a reality, and thank you to the women and men of the Central District for their patience. Earlier this month, I said expect changes to the city's crime fighting strategy. And today, along with Commissioner Harrison and BPD Command, we will be announcing the first of many changes to build an effective and accountable public safety strategy for Baltimore City. For my part as mayor, I will be focused on holding all of our agencies, including BPD, to higher standards, monitoring our progress every single day, and not accepting anything short of complete and total dedication to making Baltimore safer. Getting a handle on the flow of illegal guns and using data through our city staff practice to hold not just BPD, but every single city agency accountable for the violence in our city. And we will also work together to ensure that the people who commit acts of violence and wreak havoc on our communities are held accountable. We are still losing far too many people to violence in Baltimore City. Year to date, we have had 19 homicides. That's a 17.4% decrease over last year, but that's still too many. The status quo will not cut it. We will not continue, as I've said before, with strategies or approaches that are not making our neighborhoods safer and that are outdated. And no one committing violence, pulling a trigger, or taking advantage of our neighbors should be allowed to feel comfortable. Changing the reality of violence in Baltimore will require us to shift our approach. It will require us to be more comprehensive, coordinated, and strategic in the way that we deploy our resources and work together as a team for Baltimore. And in that vein, today, I, along with the police commissioner, am announcing a change in the strategy concerning microzones, the geographies where public safety resources are focused and deployed. When I took office, the city of Baltimore had 131 microzones. Today, we're reducing that number to 81. Reducing the overall footprint of the strategy is about quality over quantity and deploying our resources strategically. Though the remaining zones still represent roughly the same proportion of homicides and shootings, we're confident that this approach is more tailored to where we need our officers to be. I'd like to turn it over to Commissioner Harrison to talk more about this refreshed strategy and what it means for the police department. Commissioner Harrison.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I also want to join the mayor in thanking him and thanking everybody responsible for making this new Central District home for the Central District officers a reality. It's a 21st century building for a 21st century police department, and we now have a place where the officers can call home. So since we announced our crime reduction and departmental transformational plan in 2019, our department has implemented data-driven policing that focuses on using criminal intelligence and analytics to drive operational and deployment decisions in our efforts to reduce violent crime. In 2019, we looked at crime data on all gun-related incidents over the previous 5 years and established focused deployment strategies that included high visibility, proactive enforcement, foot patrols, and business checks within some historic areas plagued with violent crime. Now, over the last 18 months, we've been updating and analyzing crime data based on instances of violent crime to make adjustments and be on the forefront of where the data is leading us. So through both qualitative and quantitative analysis and the reassessment of data over the past year and a half, we found that some of our microzone areas have seen lower incidents of violent crime. So in consultation with the mayor's office, our assessment supports the adjustment we've made to refocus our effort to neighborhoods affected by the most recent violent crime data in order to optimize our resources. These new zones represent the areas where nearly 30% of homicides occurred and about 45% of where all shootings have occurred over the past 18 months. We understand the need to prioritize these areas and provide quality engagement to have a true impact on crime reduction based on where crime is occurring now. Adapting to the right type of engagement in these areas will allow our officers to be flexible in how we address areas of concern from residents and businesses alike. This, coupled with our community policing model, will increase and improve our engagement with our communities and the development of neighborhood policing plans tailored to the needs of the residents. Simply put, this improved approach will allow us to have more enhanced focus, more free time for quality engagement and enforcement in our goal to deter violent crime. We will continue to reassess and deploy strategies to increase engagement at regular intervals within these zones so that we can stay ahead of any displacement of crime and gain near real-time intelligence on potential crime. So I want to thank Mayor Scott, his team, the members of the Mayor's Office of Performance and Innovation, and our data-driven strategies team on the analysis and looking at areas of high violence in our city. Certainly, we will continue to work collaboratively in implementing comprehensive strategies to reduce violence by being data-driven and making adjustments when and where necessary to optimize our efforts to make our city safer. Now, as an update, we've taken into custody Major Kenthan and are in the process of charging him with the murder of Breonna Rogers that occurred on Swan Drive on January 19th. We also have obtained an arrest warrant for Lenny Epps for the murder and double shooting that occurred on January 22nd at 635 North Lakewood. We are still asking for anyone with any information on the murder of Dante Barksdale to call us or call Crime Stoppers right away. As a reminder, there's a $7,000 reward in this case. And we're still asking for information on the murder of 41-year-old Natalie Wright and 36-year-old Cherie Armstead, who were killed while sitting in their vehicle, and there's a $4,000 reward in this case. We have now arrested one of the individuals for our top 5 that we gave you on Friday, and we've recently added Zaid Boyd, who is now wanted for armed robbery and domestic violence. So if there's anyone who knows the identity or the whereabouts of any of these suspects, you can call Metro Crime Stoppers tip line at 1-866-7-LOCK-UP. Thank you, and I turn it back over to our mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner, and I just want everyone to know that we're going to keep talking about cases like this because we need your help in getting the word out, and we also need folks to understand how important this is, and we will not allow our family members, our friends who have been victimized to just be forgotten. So again, if you know of these folks that we're looking for, please, please, please let us know. And Mr. Commissioner, I'm glad that we were able to go and apprehend some individuals that were committing violence in the city of Baltimore. The shift in strategy announced today reflects a simple but true reality, is that the police department can't be everywhere at once. When everywhere is a priority, nowhere is a priority. We want our office to prioritize these historically violent areas, but also want them to have the time and flexibility to be able to address the displacement of crime and to visit areas that may be emerging as places that they need to focus on. The revamped approach is also designed to engage our commanders and officers in place-based problem solving. In the coming weeks, as officers get used to the new zones, my office will be working with BPD to tailor our engagement to each zone and hold them accountable. It's not just about being in the zone. The important part is what the officers are doing in the zone. For example, our approach will be different for strip malls than that of an area that's a heavily densely populated residential area. This is about grounding ourselves in the principles of community policing while also being more closely tied to the community policing plans that are being developed as a part of our consent decree. And before we answer a few questions, I just want to make sure that today's announcement represents BPD's a portion of BPD's overall and our overall comprehensive coordinated public safety strategy that my administration will be focused on. That strategy will involve the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, the Health Department, and every other city organization, but most importantly, community-based organizations all working together for a safer Baltimore. As we implement the new microzone strategy, our city agencies will be involved in proactive work in those same areas as well. We will be consistently evaluating this strategy and reporting out about our progress. This will be a part of the regular police staff meetings I am holding and the city staff process to increase accountability for this strategy in all of our agencies. I will be holding BPD accountable for faithfully adopting this strategy, being thoughtful and cognizant of the different geographies that they serve in, and using the right strategies in them. At this time, we will take a few questions. Alexa?
Good morning. For the Commissioner concerning the microzones, of the reducing from 131 to 81, I have it. How many of those 81 are new locations? And if they are new locations, would that be saying that these criminals are simply moving, and so therefore is that effective?
Ms. Commissioner?
Yeah, good question. The new zones 81 actually amounts to an elimination of 36 and the consolidation of 14. And so in our qualitative and quantitative analysis with our analysts and with the mayor's office, we were looking at some zones that were in close proximity that we could consolidate. And we understand that there has been some displacement. We took that into account. And there are some zones that over the past 18 months, more recently, either did not or had lower levels of violent crime. And so some were allowed to be eliminated.
So are any brand new? I'm sorry. Are any brand? Are any completely new?
I don't think there are any new ones. They're only consolidated, which creates a new one.
Okay.
Consolidated or eliminated.
And
Alexa, just to add there, let me be very clear. When the Commissioner is talking about eliminating zones, there are places that and we're not going to talk about extreme detail here about a deployment strategy, but you work very close to there. 41st and Fall should have never been an area that the police department was saying is one of the most violent. It never has been in the history of the city. And what we are not going to do in my administration is have our department focus on something that we're saying is violent where it's not true. We're going to be data driven. We know where these areas are. They haven't changed as long as I've been alive. That's why the department is free focusing its efforts on those people in those places. And Alexa, we can come back to you, but go ahead.
oh, my other question was just the challenge with the staffing shortage, how that is impacted with these microzones and getting police in those areas.
Well, this actually helps us with staffing and resource allocation because we're able to now focus on 81 zones rather than 131. We're able to build in a better deployment, and officers will have more free time because there are fewer zones to focus on. Now, that does not mean that we're not patrolling in those areas and responding to calls in those areas and patrolling in other areas of the city. The strategy calls for us to patrol and respond to calls everywhere. However, the focus of the right kind of quality community engagement and enforcement in those zones, fewer zones gives us more time to actually expand and flex our manpower so that we can actually do more with the fewer numbers as we grow our ranks.
Thank you.
Jay?
Just one more question on the plan. Commissioner, was this your idea or the mayor's idea?
I think this is something that we have been talking about long before the mayor became the mayor, and more so since he's been the mayor. So I think this is something we all wanted to do as we assess and reassess the effectiveness of any program, any strategy. making sure that in the beginning, we looked at the previous 5 years. Now we're looking at the time from the most recent time, over 18 months. The data supports something different. And so together we decided, under the mayor's leadership, certainly that we would look at what zones are appropriate for us to have this strategy in.
And just a COVID-related question, if we can we do that? Yeah. Knowing that the city just went to a little lighter restriction on restaurants, yesterday, Anne Arundel County announced that it was going to allow their restaurants to go to 50%, along with other retail that had been capped at 25%. What's your thinking as cases have dropped and hospitalizations have dropped? Are you looking at the possibility of kind of opening up a little more on that restriction?
And I'm going to let Dr. Jaraza respond to Jane, but you know how we do it. We look at our cases and we look at it over a 4-week period. We're committed to that, as we always have been. We're going to be consistently looking at that. We know that we have the lowest positivity rate. We know that our numbers are heading in the right direction, but we're always going to be cautious in making those decisions based on public health data. Dr. Jaraza?
No, as Mayor Scott mentioned, we do like to give the data at least 4 weeks. Again, we're obviously cautiously optimistic about what we're seeing with new cases trending down with a lower positivity rate. At the same time, we're still very much in this pandemic. We still recognize that we need to continue all of the things that have kept us safe thus far, so we want to be very cautious in how we raise restrictions.
Okay.
For the commissioner or the mayor, in relation to the quality community engagement that you referenced, can you give Baltimoreans a better idea of what that may look like in their communities, what they may see?
Yeah, as you know, we've developed our first ever comprehensive community policing plan that we're about to train all of our officers on. We have not started that training yet, but we will be in the very near future. And that will be how to work with community members to design a community policing strategy specifically for that neighborhood. And it teaches us that all of us have a community policing responsibility, and it is how to engage, not just to be in the area, but how to actually engage, create relationships, and rebuild trust, and problem-solving policing, which ties in with what the mayor said, all the other city agencies having the police officer take some level of responsibility of connecting community members with other agencies to solve the problems that we may see because we're on the ground every day.
Will that possibly look like a time allotment of when officers will physically be on the ground walking versus out of their vehicle?
Yes, well, the goal we set for ourselves was to have about 40% of the workday or the 8-hour shift free for community engagement. Certainly that requires free time and a reduction of work. Smartly reducing these zones helps us to accomplish at least a part of that. But yes, it does look like having the free time to go into neighborhoods and to build relationships, not just to go check on a business, but to actually communicate and engage with business owners and with residents to make sure we're building information so that we create a flow of communication to and from members of the community about what's happening in the community so we can help solve it.
Thank you. Last question, Alexa.
I wanted to follow up specifically with the Dante Barksdale case. Any indication at this point that his homicide had anything to do with his work? And do you know why he was in that area at the time? Are those some answers we have at this point?
Well, Alexa, what I don't want to do is compromise the investigation. What I can say is we have had information to come in that supports that he could have been there related to his work, but we are not able to right now positively give you a motive for this crime. What we're asking for is anyone who absolutely knows what happened or who has heard what happened to call us and give us that information. There's a lot of information coming in. We are processing it. We're combing through it, and we're chasing down every piece of evidence that's presented and every piece of information that we get.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Alexa, before you leave, just want to add that just so everything the commissioner said is true. but also know that Dante was there every day. You know, if you just go on his social media, you'll see him around Christmas at that location at 10 o'clock at night giving out toys. And what we are going to be doing is focus on bringing his family, the community, his Safe Streets family, this city, as you guys saw the outpouring of people who came out to his homegoing service, the justice that they need and deserve. Thank you, everybody.